afternoon, class. So today we're going to take a virtual classroom field trip. I know things are a little different now, but we're going to take a look at the Museum of Modern Art and we're going to focus on surrealism since we're going to start that in our next unit. And we're going to take a look at a specific artist, Rene Magritte, and he is an awesome surrealist. I'm so excited for everyone to see. Let's get started. So this is actually the Museum of Modern Art. It's located in Manhattan, New York. I'm sure you have been there before, your friends have been there before, maybe your family members have been there before, but it's a multi-level museum. They have Henry Matisse, they have Pablo Picasso, they have Starry Night that everyone knows that Van Gogh did. And it's an awesome museum if anyone is interested in pursuing anything art related or anything modern art, since modern art is the greatest thing in the world. And they recently opened again, so I just added in some pictures for you guys to look at since we are doing a virtual field trip, and I wanted you guys just to get the museum feel. And then there is the outside of the museum. Everyone calls it the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art. So to start off, I chose to focus on the MoMA for class today because we're going to be looking at surrealist art in this unit, and the surrealist art movement was focused on releasing all your creative energy within your own imagination. So we're going to look at Rene Magritte primarily in this virtual field trip. And as we move along in this virtual tour, I want you to pay attention to the artwork and his choice in subject because it's much different than anyone has ever done. So these images that I have on the screen now, they all define Magritte as an artist. So we have an apple, we have a pipe, we have a sky with clouds, and then we have a bowler hat. All of these don't go together, but as we move through this presentation and virtual field trip, you'll understand the greater feel of what these images mean to Rene Magritte. So getting started. So Rene Magritte was born on November 21st in 1898 in Belgium. He was married in 1922 to Georgette Berger. She was actually his muse and model for his artistic career, and a lot of artists actually do this. Henry Matisse, actually, his wife was actually his model as well. And I think this is a good technique for any artist to do because it lets you portray your subjects in a different light. Like Henry Matisse painted her in different colors and all that stuff. He studied at the Académie des Arts de Brussels from 1916 to 1918. After his schooling, he began work as a graphic designer in a wallpaper factory, which is, I was interested in when I found this out, since everyone thinks when they're famous artists, they start out as famous artists, but not every artist starts out like that. So Van Gogh didn't even start out as a famous artist. He was like a minister. He had many odd jobs, and then he fell in love with art. So it just shows you that if you choose something the first time, it might not get you right back to where you are. So you could change your mind many times and you could still be successful. It doesn't matter what you do. So after his schooling and his work in the wallpaper factory, that's when he began his surrealist artwork because he leaned towards more the impressionist stuff. So the muted colors, the landscapes, and completely opposite of what he is known for today. And I incorporated a portrait for you guys to look at, and then him working, and then some bowler hats as well. As you can see, there's a bowler hat in the picture that he's painting, actually, with a dove in front of it. So this is probably the most iconic Magritte painting that we know of. This is not at the MoMA, unfortunately. I wish it was. It would have been very cool to visit, but it's actually in a private collection. But I want to incorporate this into our visit because it's the most iconic Rene Magritte painting. So we see a man with his entire self-portrait is covered with a green apple. You see a bowler hat and the contrast between the muted background and then his overcoat. It's a very sharp contrast, and it makes you think, why are these elements together? Like, why is there an apple growing out of that man's face? It makes you really want to think about what Magritte was trying to do with this painting. And then this is the MoMA's exhibit of Rene Magritte. So you can see how they set everything up. It's a very gallery salon style. And that's good because people can get a greater look of the painting itself. So they can get up front, they can get really back. It all depends on what you want to do. And then here is also one of his paintings as well. And you can see the dimensions. He didn't have a limit of how big the painting was, how small the painting was. It all depended on what he wanted to do. So this painting is called The False Mirror. It was painted in 1928, and as you can see, it's an eye. Everyone has eyes. It's a large, unblinking eye, and it's very alarming when it's just staring at you as it stares at us through the screen. The middle of the eye, also known as the iris, is painted to represent a bright sky. And then we can see a sharp contrast between the iris and then the dark pupil. So Magritte definitely contradicted everything because you see the dark pupil and then the bright sky because you don't really necessarily have skies in your eyes unless you're actually looking at them, which is a play on words with the title since it's false mirror. Magritte wanted us to see an eye as a window, as I said before, and we can see the eye towards the blue skies filled with clouds. And Magritte also did another play because it looks like the eye is watching us as we look at the painting. And one of my favorite details about this painting is actually the detail of the cornea right here. It looks like he's about to cry, but it's technically a mirror or it's watching us. And then here is the painting itself as people watch it, and then in the MoMA. And then conservators are actually talking about the painting here, which is really awesome. Conservators is a really extensive job, lots of schooling. It's part of its chemistry. It's very hard. It's hard for me. And then here is people still looking at the painting. Another one of his paintings is The Treachery of Images. It was painted in 1930. This painting belongs to a series of word image paintings that he created. This is the only one that's located at the MoMA, but Magritte was known to incorporate images and text that would be opposite of one another. So this actually means this is not a pipe for this painting, but it is a pipe in the painting. He focused on misnaming objects, depictions of visions throughout his paintings. And Treachery of Images is actually the most iconic painting in the Surrealist movement, besides from Salvador Dali, as we'll look throughout this unit. Another one of his paintings this was actually in his word images series that he does, is The Palace of Curtains. It's one of the paintings that is contradicting one another. So there's two polygons depicting a sky with one representing ciel. I probably pronounced that wrong, which is French for sky. And Magritte once said, "An image is not so wedded to its name that one cannot find another which suits it better." This painting, I feel, is not as a sharp contrast, especially if you don't know how to read French. But all you're seeing is a blue sky, a very muted blue sky, and then the word ciel, which is French for sky, having a contrast with one another. So you have to actually think about this and understand, what do these two things have in common with another, or what don't they have in common with another? His works make you think a lot about what art is. And then here is another conservator talking about the work. And then this is a little snippet of the museum, the MoMA, that has the paintings themselves. This is probably one of my favorite ones that he has done. And I think it is so cool how there is an eye where Ham is. So this is the portrait. And when we think of portraits, we think of a selfie that we take with our friends or family. A portrait, when you do a self-portrait, you can do so many mediums with it. He did a self-portrait with known objects like breakfast. So he depicts a face within a familiar food, and we can see a bottle of wine, an empty juice of glass, and then there's just an eye staring at us with silverware. I think this painting, and definitely you guys can see this too, it's playing on what a self-portrait means to Magritte and then what our perception of portraits are. And it makes you think, what made him choose these to make a portrait? Because when you don't think of eyes when you see breakfast food. And then here are the conservators again with the work, and this is actually the work itself, as you can see the dimensions and everything. So Rene Magritte, sadly, he passed away in 1968 in Belgium. However, his art legacy lives on. He created a new dynamic with his art. He did so many subjects that made you really think about what exactly is art. Art doesn't really have a true definition, and everyone has their own means of creativity. You don't have to be amazing at it. You don't have to be poor at it. It all depends on what your creativity takes you in the classroom and how you perceive everything. And then to end the virtual field trip, we are going to do a class activity and we're going to look at exquisite corpses. So I'll talk a little bit about that within the video, the directions and everything, but you're going to do this with your friends and family members. And it's actually a technique that the surrealists used. So you're going to do different drawing techniques and everything. And I wanted to share this cartoon with you guys that the MoMA actually put out, that when Magritte arrives home, it's him putting up his hat, his overcoat, and then a green apple. And I thought it was pretty cool for you guys to share. I hope you guys enjoyed the museum visit.